Hello, and welcome to my presentation on using graphic organizers in the social studies classroom. Today I would like to focus on what exactly a graphic organizer is, how they work, why they are beneficial, and also to include specific examples on how I would use them in the social studies context. Graphic organizers are often used as part of the education lingo, and so it is often assumed that everyone knows what a graphic organizer is. But to be on the safe side, we'll break it down. According to Janet Struble, a graphic organizer is a visual representation of knowledge, of a concept or topic. Essentially, they are pictorial, or a symbolic representation of what we know. A graphic organizer is a communication tool that uses visual symbols to express knowledge, concepts, thoughts, or ideas, and the relationships between them. The main purpose of a graphic organizer is to provide visual aid to facilitate learning and instruction. Some other terms that you may be familiar with for a graphic organizer would include knowledge maps, concept maps, advanced organizers, story maps, or concept diagrams. In her YouTube video, Dr. Katie McKnightley has provided a succinct explanation as to why graphic organizers work and how they assist in learning. I invite you now to click on her link to watch and listen. The number one reason why graphic organizers are beneficial to teachers is simply because they benefit our students. The purpose of teaching and learning is for student success, so ultimately any tool that we use in the classroom must essentially aim to benefit the students in our care. Teachers can use graphic organizers in an activity or an assessment. So why do graphic organizers benefit students? Well, according to Alberta Education, graphic organizers allow students to think creatively. They activate prior knowledge, they highlight key concepts and ideas, which one of the principles of teaching is to ensure that students learn the big ideas. Graphic organizers can help draw attention to the main concepts so that students don't get confused or sucked in by smaller concepts or information. Graphic organizers also assist in organizing information. They help students to see their thinking. As mentioned in Dr. McKnightley's clip, people don't think in words or sentences, so graphic organizers help students to conceptualize information pictorially, which leads to better retention and understanding. Graphic organizers help as a scaffold for complex tasks. They break information down into more manageable pieces. While there are a number of types of graphic organizers that could be useful in the social studies classroom to support student learning, in this presentation I will discuss the following and provide examples on how I would use them in the classroom. The first graphic organizer that we will discuss will be the chain of events. The example that I have included for you is a timeline, which is a subtype of chain of events. This type of graphic organizer is useful for displaying sequencing and chronology. Social studies teachers often display timelines or have their students construct timelines so that students can get an understanding of the order in which things occur. Chain of events can also be used for teaching sequential steps or processes, such as the steps a person would go through in order to become elected as the Prime Minister of Canada. Tree diagrams, also known as hierarchy diagrams, use the principles of rank and order in order to organize and break down a concept. By using a tiered system, students can conceptualize relationships between elements, people, or positions. For an example, one could use a tree diagram to outline systems of government, as is demonstrated in the right-hand corner. Cluster maps are a type of conceptual organizer. They are often referred to as bubble maps. Structurally, they are non-linear and open-ended, which can be useful for students during the early stages of research. Writing research papers can be intimidating for students, so even before they begin to research, I would have students use a cluster map to brainstorm or generate ideas. This would essentially provide an opportunity to recognize relationship amongst ideas and concepts, activate prior knowledge, and to build student confidence when they realize how much they already know about the topic. Persuasion maps act as a scaffold to help students build persuasive arguments. This graphic organizer walks students through the process of developing and expanding ideas. I would use this to help students organize their thoughts in order to write an essay or develop an argument for a debate. While a cluster map can be useful for generating ideas, the persuasion map organizes ideas into subtopics and ideas, which are useful for students during the working phase. I would use the persuasion map also as a formative assessment. The format enables easy review and evaluation, which I could then either provide written or verbal feedback and have the student revisit their work. It also provides a concrete product for the student to be able to use for self-assessment. The ISP chart, or Information Source Page Chart, is a simple graphic organizer that helps students organize their research. A major component of the Alberta Social Studies curriculum focuses on writing and forming critical opinions. This requires that students be able to back up their arguments with facts and research. I would use this for any type of research activity to help students organize their work. I would also encourage students to color code information in order to separate ideas and concepts, which would ultimately help them in the writing and production stage. According to Inspiring Education, one of the mandates is to produce an engaged thinker. The Venn diagram is a graphic organizer that assists students in comparing and contrasting ideas or concepts. This essentially helps them to begin to think critically, to analyze and evaluate information. The way that I would use this in the classroom would be to have students evaluate relationships and connectedness. The examples of former leaders Golda Meir and Indira Gandhi on the right-hand side would be useful for evaluating how leadership or political decisions impact situations or events. U.S. educator Janet Harton also suggests putting a Venn diagram on a summative assessment in order to have students demonstrate higher-level thinking. Another way that I could use this in preparing students for Alberta diploma examinations would be to have them compare and contrast student essays, which are accessible through Alberta Education. In comparing a student who gets a 5 out of 5 on a diploma essay with a student who gets a 3 out of 5, students can begin to think about what they need to work on in order to do well on their departmental exam. The KWL chart is a graphic organizer that is commonly used in reading. In having students write down what they already know and what they would like to learn, it activates prior knowledge and builds student confidence in the subject area. Another way that it is commonly used is for formative assessment. In social studies, I would have students complete a KWL chart and hand it in at the end of class in order to determine where my students are at, identify any misconceptions, and to help me plan what areas need further practice and review. As mentioned earlier, a graphic organizer is a visual representation of knowledge. Maps are both an obvious and yet hidden application of how graphic organizers are used within the social studies classroom. Utilizing and developing maps can be a natural way of teaching global and geographical awareness and knowledge, which are essential components of all grades within the social studies program of studies. It would be very difficult to teach mapping skills or geography without having a pictorial representation of the world. In teaching students and guiding them to be ethical and global citizens, I think that it is imperative to provide a context for where issues and problems occur. So when evaluating world wars, this would mean mapping out what countries were involved, which side they were on, identifying major battles, or identifying geographical challenges that civilians would have had in fleeing. Or, when discussing deforestation, I might have students identify where the Amazon is and the 9 countries directly concerned with it since it falls within their natural territories. This concludes my presentation on using graphic organizers in social studies. My hope is that you have found it helpful not only in understanding what graphic organizers are, but why they are beneficial to both you and your students, and how you can easily and effectively incorporate them into your social studies classroom.